This is an example of hodgepatching. This is a hodgepatch elephant. I made some blinds to go on my conservatory and I wanted some different shapes. I've got an elephant there. I've got a flower with a pot there. These are just some random shapes that I used just to embellish that particular blind. And right over there you can see we've got a teapot. So let's make a start. Today we're going to make a Hodgepatch cat, and what I've done is I have just printed off a template from the computer. You can get loads by just doing a Google image search. This is done across 2 pieces of paper because I wanted it quite large, and then I have just, if you can see that, I have just drawn around the template on a piece of fabric. Now you'll notice that I have joined the fabric because I had 2 squares left over, and you want preferably a plain piece of fabric to start. So you just transfer your image onto a piece of plain fabric and then we're going to cut it out. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to need is one single random shaped piece of fabric, which is going to go in your centre, and you're going to sew that on, which I'll show you in a minute, and that's going to form the basis of your hodgepatch. Then you need some scraps of material. I've got a range of scraps here that I've just cut off when I've been making other things. If you notice that I've got a theme colour of sort of blues, but on the blinds, if you remember, I used all sorts of different colours. And that works perfectly well. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to theme your colours. It just so happens that I've been working with a lot of blue products. So let's get this shape sewn onto the middle of our cat, and we're going to do that with our sewing machine. I'm just using an ordinary straight stitch just to go around the entire patch. It's really difficult actually to sew and hold my camera at the same time, but hey, I'm a woman, so I can multitask. So let's go again. Oh, did you see that? I got some speed up there. And round again. Don't worry about the stitching. You won't be able to see any of this stitching when we've done the hodgepatching. I've found that circles don't actually work. You've got to have shapes with straight edges. So let me put my needle down there so that I can swing it round. I'm hoping that the weather is as good for you as it is for us at the moment. We are having a really long dry spell. And it's lovely and hot. The only problem is that I have to do a heck of a lot of watering out on the plot so that our vegetables will come in nicely for the winter. Okay, so we've done that, and as you can see, we have now got a central patch. The next thing that we want to do is we want to take one of our scraps, and we are going to sew it with the sewing machine from here to here. Okay, so we want to be putting it right sides together. That's really, really, really important. And we're just going to sew along that first line from here to here. So we've sewn it together, okay, and then we bend it backwards, and if you can see, that gives a nice clean edge. You can't see any of the stitching that we used on this central piece. Now we've got to snip this bit off, staying in line with this, okay, staying in line with that original edge. Right, so now you see that we've got a new edge to sew along. So we take another piece of our fabric, okay, and once again all blues on this one. Don't need all of that. You can snip them off before you start. But what I do is I like to put them this way to check that the colours will actually match, and you know, it looks good before I sew them together. So we then once again right sides together, and we are going to sew all the way from this edge to this new corner. So we've done that side, and you'll notice now that the topping material is going over the edges of the actual template, and that's exactly what we want to do. We're going to build this up by going round and then round, following the new lines that we get. So we're going to sew a piece from this corner to this corner now, and we're going to go round in a circle and build up, once again just sewing pieces on and on to that and on to that and on to that until we have covered the whole of the template. It doesn't matter that it isn't cat shaped, because what we're going to do is when we have finished all of this, we're going to turn it over and we're going to stitch around the edge, and then we're going to cut out the edge. So let me put some more of these patches on and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So as you can see, I am covering the pussycat, the whole pussycat template, by just sewing these shapes onto one another. Now when you get to the edge, you'll sometimes find that you've got a little bit left over here, you know, where it hasn't covered. You've got to cover it. So even though it means another strip and you're only going to see a tiny fraction of it, it doesn't matter. You've got to cover all of the pussycat. Okay, so I just went round and round and round and round, sewing pieces on, and I'll get right back to you when I have covered the cat. Okay, so I have now completely covered the pussycat shape. It doesn't look anything like a pussycat now, does it? So what we want to do is we want to flip it over so that we can see the pussycat shape, and then with our sewing machine we are going to go all the way around the edge, and that'll seal all of these bits of fabric onto the actual cat before we cut him out. So we just do an ordinary plain running stitch, single stitch round the edge of the pussycat, about a quarter of an inch around, and then we simply cut out the shape again. So here's the finished article. It looks far more like a pussycat now, and that is ready to be sewn onto any of your pillowcases, quilts or bags or whatever you want to do with it really. But there it is, a Hodgepatch cat.